Tonight on ABC News Live Prime, days after the deadly shooting of a man in the streets of Minneapolis, sources now say the federal agents accused of opening fire are now on leave. Outrage swells over the killing of ICU nurse Alex Pretti, and the question now, when exactly did that leave begin? Plus, President Trump facing growing criticism from a growing number of Republicans over his immigration crackdown and his reaction to the alarming scene at a Minneapolis town hall, a man attacking Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. The FBI raided the election office in Fulton County, Georgia, following President Trump's repeated false claims the 2020 presidential election was stolen, what he tells ABC News federal agents are looking for. The bitter cold from Texas to the Northeast driving up the death toll following that winter storm. Hundreds of thousands still without power. A lineman seen dangling from a chopper trying to restore high voltage lines.
And I'm Chief Meteorologist Lee Goldberg tracking another possible nor'easter this weekend. And when will the bone-chilling cold end?
An in-depth look into a major threat to community colleges and potentially your wallet. An army of digital crooks from around the world are stealing American identities and using them to siphon off hundreds of millions of dollars in student financial aid. Tonight, the ABC News investigation into the growing threat of ghost students and how to protect your identity.
As you're stealing identities, these loans are not being repaid. They're being assigned to people. They don't even know they have a debt with the U.S. Department of Education.
And a surprising Hall of Fame snub. Head coach Bill Belichick will not be a first ballot Hall of Famer. After 6 Super Bowl victories with the Patriots, 8 in all, what could be behind it?
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Lindsay Davis.
Good evening. I'm Perry Russum in for Lindsay Davis. Thank you for streaming with us. It's a busy Wednesday night. We want to start with the deadly shooting of ICU nurse Alex Pretti, killed by federal agents in Minneapolis. Tonight, there is new video that allegedly shows Pretti in a confrontation with federal agents 11 days before he was killed. Take a look. A man who appears to be Pretti, along with others, seen shouting at agents who had been blocking an intersection back on January 13th. This comes as a source tells ABC News the 2 agents who shot Pretti have now been placed on administrative leave. It comes as an alarming scene unfolded during a town hall in Minneapolis last night. A man charging at Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and spraying her with an unidentified liquid from a syringe before he was taken away by security. Here with us tonight is Chad Wolf, the former acting Secretary of Homeland Security during President Trump's first term. And we have the latest from that migrant detention center in Texas, where dozens of migrants were seen protesting at the facility over the weekend. But first, here's Matt Rivers in Minneapolis tonight.
Tonight, new video appearing to show Minneapolis ICU nurse Alex Pretti in a struggle with federal agents 11 days before he was shot and killed. You see a man who appears to be Pretti and others on the scene shouting at agents who had been blocking an intersection on January 13th. A man who looks like Pretti seen kicking a federal vehicle before agents got out, pushed him, and tackled him to the ground. Agents then firing gas into the crowd. But the agents got up, and the man appearing to be Pretti walked away, a gun visible on his waistband. We don't know what happened before this altercation. DHS is reviewing this video. And tonight, sources tell ABC News the 2 federal officers who shot Alex Pretti over the weekend have been placed on paid administrative leave. A Customs and Border Protection spokesperson telling ABC News the 2 officers have been on leave since the shooting Saturday. But that directly contradicts comments made by Border Patrol Commander Greg Bavino over the weekend.
All agents that were involved in that scene are working, not in Minneapolis, but in other locations. That's for their safety.
We asked DHS about the discrepancy. Are they on administrative leave or are they working elsewhere? And we have not heard back. According to a preliminary DHS report sent to Congress, one of the federal officers involved is a Border Patrol agent and the other is a Customs and Border Protection officer. That report says DHS conducted a preliminary review of body-worn camera footage. And it's the first time the agency has acknowledged critical facts, including that 2 agents fired guns during the shooting. The DHS timeline says while agents attempted to take Pretti into custody, a struggle ensued, and a Border Patrol agent yelled, "He's got a gun," multiple times. 10 shots were fired in just seconds. Nowhere in the DHS report to Congress does it say that Pretti ever brandished a weapon or even attempted to reach for his gun, which he was legally allowed to carry. The report also never mentions that Pretti was disarmed before he was shot, as video appears to show. Stella Carlson speaking out to CNN. She was the woman in the pink jacket just feet away from Pretti when he was killed.
Did I think I was going to be filming a murder? No. An assassination? No. I mean, I watched him die. I remember him arching his back and his head rolling back, and it was so fast moving, but not for me. Like, when they left, when they fled, which now I see, that after the shooting they decided to just scatter and save themselves.
Today, Governor Tim Walz making an unannounced visit to the growing memorial for Alex Pretti at the spot he was killed after speaking to President Trump. I spoke to Walz just as he arrived.
And do you believe that there will be a shift in tone here from the administration after your conversation with the president here on the streets?
I'm not so interested in a shift of tone. We just need them out of here, and we need accountability for what's happened.
And tonight, growing bipartisan calls for Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to resign after millions of Americans saw those eyewitness videos showing that Alex Pretti never brandished or pulled out his gun before he was killed. This is what Secretary Noem said just hours after the fatal shooting.
This looks like a situation where an individual arrived at this scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement.
That ICU nurse's family called the administration's response a lie. And tonight, Republican Senators Lisa Murkowski and Tom Tillis joining Democrats demanding Noem step down.
She's a complete failure on disaster response. She clearly doesn't know how to manage. She's never managed a large organization, and she's failing at every possible measure of the job.
And after President Trump signaled he would de-escalate operations here, tensions remain high. Tonight, the FBI investigating after Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar also called for Secretary Noem to resign.
ICE cannot be reformed.
When Omar was attacked at a town hall in Minneapolis overnight.
And DHS Secretary Kristi Noem must resign or face impeachment.
A man suddenly approaching her and using a syringe to spray her with an unknown substance. Security tackling the man, identified tonight as 55-year-old Anthony Kazmierzak. The congresswoman, who has been widely criticized by the president and the administration, finishing her speech.
Here is the reality that people like this ugly man don't understand. We are Minnesota strong, and we will stay resilient in the face of whatever they might throw.
After the attack on Omar at that town hall, our Rachel Scott speaking with President Trump on the phone. The president suggesting she had herself sprayed in the attack, saying, quote, "I think she's a fraud. I really don't think about that. She probably had herself sprayed, knowing her." But there is no evidence of that. The president also telling Rachel he hadn't seen the video when they spoke last night. And tonight, violent clashes outside the Dilley Detention Center in Texas. Protesters demanding the release of 5-year-old Liam Ramos and his father. The preschooler seen here standing in the Minnesota cold last week when ICE took them into custody. First the boy, they say, to care for him, and then arresting the father, sending both of them more than 1,300 miles south to this Texas detention center. Congressman Joaquin Castro visiting Liam and his father today, posting this image, the little boy sleeping in his father's arms. A federal judge now blocking their deportation as their legal battle plays out.
And Perry, Border Czar Tom Homan, now overseeing federal operations here in Minneapolis, expected to give his first press conference here tomorrow morning. Perry.
Matt Rivers, thank you. Joining us now is former Acting Secretary of Homeland Security Chad Wolf, who served during President Trump's first term for a little more than a year. He is now the Homeland Security and Immigration Chair for the America First Policy Institute. Chad, thank you for joining us here on Prime. You've called President Trump's decision to send Border Czar Tom Homan to Minnesota a stroke of genius. How will things look different with Homan there?
Well, I mean, Tom's got a unique set of skills. He's an operational individual. He's got 30 years both in Border Patrol and ICE. I think most importantly, though, he hasn't really been involved in Minneapolis and Minnesota over the previous 3 weeks. So he's got a fresh set of eyes, and he's engaging both the mayor and the governor in trying to find a solution, trying to find a compromise to lower the temperature, the chaos, and the violence that we see there in Minneapolis. So I'm very hopeful that he is going to get the job done.
You were once the acting secretary of DHS. Secretary Noem is now in charge, but there are calls for her to step down. Do you think she is the right person for the job?
Well, I've been asked this question a lot. Again, I would have probably played it a little differently as far as characterizing as she did shortly after the events over the last several weeks. it's important in any type of officer-involved shooting that you let the investigation unfold and play out. And so I would have waited until that investigation to get to all the facts before I started commenting.
Do you trust her going forward?
Well, I think most importantly, the president has made clear that he does moving forward. But I think at the same time, I think the president was unhappy with what was unfolding in Minneapolis. And that's why, as you indicated, he sent Tom Homan in as well.
So given the seemingly aggressive actions we've seen during recent ICE enforcement operations in Minnesota, is there anything that you would do differently?
Well, I would certainly try to get the cooperation of the state and locals. I think Minneapolis is the outlier. It's not how 98% of the other jurisdictions within the country where ICE operates unfolds, right? It unfolds differently in Minneapolis because of sanctuary city policies, as well as local and state officials being very aggressive in calling DHS, not a law enforcement entity. We need to go to war with ICE. And I think that sends a signal to activists and to others there to impede in ICE operations. And anytime you impede in a law enforcement operation, you have the potential for very bad things to happen.
You've called for the American people to support the men and women of ICE after the 2 deadly shootings in Minnesota and the protests that we've seen after. How can trust be restored?
Well, we can let them do their job. Well, first of all, I think you need a full investigation. You need accountability and transparency, and President Trump has called for that as well. So let's let the investigation unfold. It's not going to happen overnight. These things do take time. There's a lot to unpack and unfold here. I think you reported on it earlier. There's some new video in just today of Alex, assaulting federal officials. So you have to take that into account. I'm not saying that the shooting was justified, but that's going to be part of the investigation. So I think it's really important to let that play out, have the findings of the investigation made transparent and obviously public, and take the accordingly actions after that. But I think also most importantly is let's let ICE do their job and do that in coordination with the city, with local police. Let's let them go into the jail setting and do their job instead of having them to take it to the streets, which again is unlike what they do in most other jurisdictions.
Chad Wolf, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Following the shootings in Minnesota, Senate Democrats and Republicans are divided over a bill to fund the Department of Homeland Security. Democrats are calling for the DHS bill to be split from a package of other funding bills so it can be rewritten. The bills must be passed by Friday to avoid a partial government shutdown. It comes as DHS Secretary Kristi Noem continues to face calls to step down. So for more on all this, we are joined now by Democratic Senator Elissa Slotkin from Michigan. Senator, thank you for joining us. I want to start here with Secretary Noem. You just came off the Senate floor where you were calling for Secretary Noem to resign. You want her to face legal challenges for, in your words, lying to the American people after the killing of Alex Pretti. You voted to confirm Secretary Noem. So what do you say now about that vote?
Yeah, I said it on the Senate floor just now. I'm from Michigan. I'm from a big border state. I need to have a good relationship with the head of Homeland Security, and we've got a big new bridge opening up this year. And so I wanted a positive relationship with her. And, she just fundamentally doesn't understand who we are as Americans. And I think so I don't regret that I had to, as a Michigander, have a positive relationship with her or try. But at this point, she just doesn't understand our history, our values, her job as a cabinet secretary, and the fact that she would call someone like Alex Pretti a domestic terrorist without knowing anything, again, is to me just indicative of just a fundamental inappropriateness for the job. She should either resign, the president should fire her, he's taken a lot of heat for her and Stephen Miller, or she should be impeached if she won't go.
So are you saying that your decision to confirm Secretary Noem came down to a bridge?
It came down to me as a border state senator having to have a strong relationship with the Secretary of Homeland Security. And as someone who has always tried to reach across the aisle, who believes that, honestly, most forward progress in this country in the past has had to happen when it's, in a bipartisan way. I'm not ashamed of that. But I also can call a spade, and this is it's beyond the pale with what she's doing with ICE.
So I want to turn to the DHS funding bill. Late today, Democratic leader Chuck Schumer laid out reforms your caucus is seeking to, quote, rein in ICE, including ending roving patrols, new accountability standards, and requiring agents to use body cameras and take off their masks. How confident are you those reforms will go through?
Well, look, it's been interesting over the course of just one day how many of my Republican colleagues have now said that they'd be okay separating out the Homeland Security bill from the other bills. And it shows that they know there's work that we have to do legislatively on reform of ICE. Like, it's just not tenable. They've lost the trust. And that's not just a Democrat versus Republican thing. I mean, I've been surprised from, Joe Rogan to Zach Bryan. You have people coming out saying this is just not who we are as Americans. So I was glad to see that. There's a bunch of reforms that need to happen, but they really just come down to have the federal forces live up to the same standards that our local Michigan State police have to live up to, right? Body cams, wear some insignia, independent investigations when there's some sort of problem. Like, there's a bunch of things that our local police have to do every day that they should have to do if federal forces are going anywhere in this country.
And then, as we mentioned, these discussions are happening with a partial government shutdown on the horizon. It would affect the FAA, air traffic controllers, and DHS. What do you think will happen?
I think that based on my Republican colleagues today showing a couple inches of spine, they're willing to separate out DHS, so we'll fund the rest of the government. And then DHS, by the way, they have plenty of money. The big, beautiful bill that was passed back in July gave them unbelievable money. So nothing's really shutting down in their world, but it gives us time to actually, in a bipartisan way, come up with appropriate reforms for ICE.
And then very quickly on this last question regarding the attack on Representative Omar yesterday and a man spraying her with an unknown substance. President Trump spoke with our Rachel Scott last night and called Omar a fraud and says she probably had herself sprayed knowing her. What are your reactions to President Trump's comments?
Well, look, I mean, as someone who had to go on 24/7 security detail because the president called for me to be hanged in November, he is using the bully pulpit. He's using his words in order to intimidate, weaponize the government. I bet you she's under 10 times as many threats today because the president is saying things like that. So he knows what he's doing when he does that. And it's intimidation and it's purposeful. And look, whoever you are, Democrat or Republican, you shouldn't be attacked for doing your job at a town hall. Whether you agree with someone or not, they shouldn't be physically attacked. And I think we can agree to that.
Senator Alyssa Slotkin, thank you.
Thank you.
Next tonight, to the FBI raid of the election office in Fulton County, Georgia, following President Trump's repeated false claims that the 2020 presidential election was stolen. Sources telling ABC News federal agents are looking for the physical ballots from that election. Here's Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas.
Tonight, FBI agents searching the elections office in Fulton County, Georgia, as President Trump orders the Justice Department to investigate his false claim that the 2020 election was stolen. Fulton County officials say the agents, armed with a search warrant, were seizing records related to the 2020 elections, including ballots.
Have the ballots actually left the building?
They're leaving the building right now.
Just 1 week ago, Trump declaring prosecutions are next.
People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be. It was a rigged election. Can't have rigged elections.
Joe Biden won the popular vote in 2020 by more than 7 million votes, and the Electoral College 306 to 232. His victory in Georgia was confirmed by a full statewide audit and a hand recount. At the time, Trump tried to pressure Georgia's Republican Secretary of State to find him the votes he needed.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
Trump was later indicted in Fulton County on charges related to alleged election interference. That case dismissed late last year. Even if President Trump had been able to find those 11,000 votes in Georgia, it would not have been enough to win the 2020 election. He would have still had to flip several other states. The Electoral College wasn't close. At the time, the president's own Attorney General Bill Barr determined there was no widespread voter fraud in the election. But now the Justice Department under Pam Bondi, quick to comply with the president's wishes. Perry?
Thanks. Brutal cold is gripping most of the country tonight. Wind chills are below zero across the Midwest and Great Lakes. And cold weather alerts remain in effect for parts of the East Coast from Florida to upstate New York. And now there's a new storm threat for the Northeast. Lee Goldberg is tracking it all, but we start with Stephanie Ramos from New Jersey.
Tonight, unrelenting cold fueling snow along the Great Lakes and frozen roads stranding drivers in the south as authorities take drastic measures to restore power to hundreds of thousands in the dark. In northern Mississippi, a lineman dangling from a chopper high in the air, working to restore high voltage transmission lines. Trucker Darian Williams among dozens of motorists stranded on a stretch of Interstate 22 southeast of Memphis for hours overnight.
No movement. Truck almost ran out of fuel. I had to cut it off.
By daybreak, authorities asking residents with all-terrain vehicles to bring supplies.
Please be alive.
In hard-hit Nashville, resident Carlos Whitaker checking on his 98-year-old neighbor, Gray.
Are you trying to stay warm in here, buddy?
I'm trying to get my phone charged.
Sharing some hot oatmeal in his car.
Cheers.
Arctic air turning roads to ice rinks, rendering drivers helpless. Watch this car spin completely out of control as it slides down a hill in Austin, Texas. New York City using massive melters to clear away the snow. And on the frigid Hudson River, a Coast Guard cutter breaking through the massive chunks of ice, working to free a boat that got stuck.
Stephanie Ramos joins us now. Stephanie, you're standing at the shore of the Hudson River. What are conditions like?
Oh, Perry, it is brutally cold right now. We can see all the ice on the Hudson River right now. Temperatures will feel well below freezing here tonight with another potential system coming to the northeast. Perry.
And we can hear the wind. Stephanie Ramos, thank you. Let's get to WABC's chief meteorologist Lee Goldberg, who is tracking a potential weekend nor'easter. Lee, what can we expect? And is there an end in sight to the brutal cold?
There is, but it's probably not for another week, Perry. So it's several more really potent Arctic pushes coming in and even more severe over the weekend. So we already wake up to sub-zero wind chills on Thursday morning from the Great Lakes into the Northeast. It feels like freezing all the way down to places like Orlando. That's just scratching the surface, even worse over the upcoming weekend. So that Arctic air bumping into a lot of Pacific moisture coming in. That's going to give life to a low in the Gulf of Mexico, then ultimately off the East Coast. Now we're honing in on that potential storm track, and it looks like we're getting confident on some snow in the Carolinas over the weekend. Along the I-95 corridor to the northeast, more of a glancing blow, but still light snows possible from New York City to Boston, but there could still be some heavy snows, parts of Long Island, maybe out to Cape Cod, and the coastal impacts are important with this storm. Could be very strong winds and some tidal flooding because we're coming in on a full moon. Regardless of that track, we know intense chills going all the way down to the deep south. In fact, temperatures over the weekend in Florida, those are not wind chills, in the teens and 20s. Could be the coldest temperatures in Orlando and Miami since 2010. Perry?
Lee Goldberg, thank you. The Fed today delivering its first interest rate decision of the year as pressure is mounting from President Trump. It comes as companies including Amazon, UPS, and Pinterest have announced massive layoffs. Elizabeth Schulze joins us now from Washington, D.C. So, Elizabeth, what happened today with interest rates?
So, Perry, interest rates are on hold. The Fed decided to keep rates where they are, meaning they didn't cut rates, they didn't raise them. That means for your borrowing costs, think of your credit card, a home mortgage, car loan, those borrowing costs will stay pretty much where they are, at least for now. The Fed is basically in wait-and-see mode, looking at both the jobs market and inflation. A really big headline from the Fed today is that this is the first time that Fed Chair Jerome Powell has spoken publicly since he revealed that he is facing a criminal investigation by the Justice Department. He really did not reveal a lot of details about that investigation, Perry, but I did have a chance to ask the Fed chair about why he's kind of pushing back on the demands from President Trump that the Fed should lower rates even more than they currently are.
What would happen to American households if the Federal Reserve loses its ability to operate independent from politics?
So really, the point of independence is not to protect policymakers or anything like that. It just is that every advanced economy democracy in the world has come around to this common practice.
That's the key takeaway there. The Fed chair saying, as of now, we remain independent and we are committed to staying independent, despite this ongoing pressure campaign, Perry, from the Trump administration to lower rates from where they are now.
So when it comes to these layoffs at Amazon, UPS, and Pinterest, are economists getting concerned?
You know, we have seen some big headlines when you think about these layoffs. Amazon, 16,000 jobs. That's on top of the 14,000 jobs that it announced last year. And a lot of those are corporate jobs. Amazon had said last year that it's looking at how artificial intelligence is reshaping its workforce. Notably, in that announcement today, it did not specifically single out AI as an impact here. But we have seen other companies in recent days. You point out Pinterest, for example, talked about AI. UPS, a lot of layoffs lately. Nike. Across the board, we are seeing these high-profile announcements. At this point, the Fed and economists are largely in kind of wait-and-see mode. It is clear that the jobs market has been getting worse. People who are looking for a job right now, it is a lot harder to get one. That is incredibly frustrating for people putting in a lot of applications without success. Overall, the Fed did cut rates last year to try to support the jobs market. The Fed chair sounded more optimistic that it could be in a better place throughout this year.
Elizabeth Schulze, thank you.
Thanks.
The United States issuing a new warning to Iran today. President Trump says a massive armada is heading toward the region. The president demanding Iran negotiate a new nuclear weapons deal and told the regime time is running out. Iran's foreign minister has expressed a willingness to talk. However, he said Iran has, quote, their fingers on the trigger. When we come back, the heroic rescue of a nurse after her car plunged into a river, and an ABC News investigation into the new threat to community colleges. Ghost students, an army of digital fraudsters from around the world stealing identities and using them to siphon hundreds of millions of dollars in financial aid.
As you're stealing identities, these loans are not being repaid. They're being assigned to people. They don't even know they have a debt with the U.S. Department of Education.
And the growing backlash to legendary NFL head coach Bill Belichick not getting into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this year. We look at his career and the stunning omission. By the numbers. College tuition aid fraud is among the most pervasive, expensive, and dynamic schemes going into 2026. Community colleges nationwide have been deluged by so-called ghost students, an army of digital thieves stealing Americans' identities and using them to submit AI-generated applications. Their goal? To enroll fake students, secure financial aid, and repeat. ABC News and its nationwide network of affiliates have been investigating this growing trend. Here's ABC senior national correspondent Steve Osunsami.
This is 58-year-old Murat Mayer of suburban D.C., a business researcher for a nonprofit with a Ph.D. who has no need at all to take classes at this community college in Maryland. But as he and his teenage son discovered last fall when they were applying for college financial aid, someone had beat them to it.
So that's what you saw. All the ads are fake.
Stealing their identities and signing both of them up for classes at community colleges across the country.
We noticed that there were a lot of activity. There are a lot of applications, loan applications, grant applications. Then we panicked.
You're here talking with us. He wasn't as comfortable.
Correct. He was scared.
For nearly 2 years, someone was using their credit to apply for school loans. And his son, who today is a high school senior in Bethesda, Maryland, was already listed as a second-year student at this community college in the middle of Utah.
Someone was attending class pretending to be your son.
And he's passing the classes.
He believes the thieves stole their identities after his wife died in a tragic car accident and their health insurance company had one of those massive data leaks.
How big of a problem is this?
It's a huge issue. So, when the pandemic, everybody went to online learning. By doing that, it really did open the door. So right now we have about 200 investigations open nationwide. I mean, some of the losses are in the smallest in the hundreds of thousands up to over $1 billion.
They call them ghost students, these digital thieves with no shame who are stealing identities. Jason Williams, a federal investigator, says they'll often use AI to enroll long lists of people in schools, sign them up for Pell Grants and loans, and then disappear as soon as they get the money.
As you're stealing identities, these loans are not being repaid. They're being assigned to people. They don't even know they have a debt with the U.S. Department of Education. Or you get some letter from the department or the servicer or the Internal Revenue Service that says you owe the Department of Education money.
And he says they're targeting Americans of all ages.
I thought that because I am a 55-year-old man, that I don't have to worry about that. It sounds like that's not true.
That is not true. So we've had cases where they're misusing identities of people in their 80s and 90s and going to school.
It's community colleges who accept almost everyone that are seeing this the most. A college in Maryland shared with us this photo of a would-be student applying to their school, and we've blurred his face because he hasn't been charged with a crime. They say he's here showing a fake ID to a suspicious admissions counselor on a video call, and then allegedly accidentally shares this screen, revealing a spreadsheet of other alleged stolen identities. Here's that same would-be student trying to get into the same school just last week, using a different name and ID. Authorities warn that in these ghost student cases, anyone's identity can be stolen.
From ABC News in New York.
And one of our great talents at ABC News is proof.
I got that tea. I'm ready to go. So I woke up in mid-February to this news, and it took me until late December to finally get this discharged. Your best bet is really to get on the road.
Anchor and transportation correspondent Gio Benitez got an alert on his phone last year.
It was my bank saying that my credit score had just dropped 250 points overnight. And it was a student loan that had been taken out in 2021, right in the middle of the pandemic. And I definitely wasn't a student then.
Our Gio Benitez.
In 2021, our friend and colleague was a long way from needing any student loan.
Michael, listen, we are excited. Look, we got the countdown right.
He was a network newsman on the set of Good Morning America, seen here with astronauts who are training to fly into space.
On the Earth's surface, I weigh 175 pounds. Up here, 0. I put my journalist hat on, and I'm like, I need to figure out what's going on here. And the lender at the time was saying, we can't really do anything unless you file a police report. But it didn't end there.
The thieves who authorities never found had enrolled him as a student at the University of Phoenix and then disappeared with about $6,000 in financial aid. He says as a child from a family that struggled with credit, this was upsetting.
You have to go and find your high school transcript, like all of these things that you have forgotten about long ago, 20 years ago, and you now have to get all of these documents somehow. It's a lot of work.
Our owned and operated ABC stations across America are seeing this up close. At our station in Philadelphia,
I'm just going to give you my hand notes of the stuff that I was sharing with you.
Investigative reporter Chad Pradelli spoke with 2 schools that found hundreds of ghost students using stolen identities.
Welcome to Delaware County Community College.
We had nearly 500 ghost students that actually were registered in classes.
We canceled over $600,000 in Title IV aid that we had to send back to the government before that aid was dispersed to these fraudulent students.
How many records are in the database right now?
In suburban Atlanta, former NFL linebacker Maurice Simpkins and his wife run a software security company that helps more than 150 schools verify the identities of entering students to make sure they are real people. He, too, has been a victim of identity theft.
The school gets a pass or fail rating or a review rating almost instantaneous.
For each student?
Each student.
So if I were to simplify it, you've created a firewall for the crooks.
That's essentially the way I like to look at it. From a football term, it's an offensive line.
And recovered by Green Bay.
The former Green Bay Packer, seen here in a game on Fox, discovered he, too, was a victim of identity theft years ago when they were trying to buy a home. He says they found digital footprints from criminal rings around the world.
Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nigeria. Most recently, we've been seeing some Russian data where it's actually coming in Russian characters in some instances. I think the worst we've seen was right around 34% fraudulent.
33% of the students who were already inside in one institution,
yes,
were fake.
Who had already been in classes for a number of semesters.
The feds are trying to keep up with the crooks and send them to jail. A Maryland man who used the identity of more than 60 people and ran away with $6.7 million in federal student aid, sentenced to 4 years in prison. A father and son in Arizona who were using the identities of more than 300 people to steal $7.4 million, sentenced to a year in prison each. Starting last summer, the federal website for student financial aid began requiring additional ID. Authorities are telling everyone to go to the credit reporting agencies today. Download the app if they have one, and freeze your credit record for free.
It's locked.
There are videos like this one that show you how to do it online.
One of the things I found out was how easy it was to prevent this. Had I just had those locks on my credit accounts, they're free. And if you need your credit account at some point for a mortgage or whatever it is, all you got to do is go on your phone, hit unlock, you make the purchase, and then you lock it up again.
They're also encouraging parents to check with the credit companies for any lines of credit using the name of their children.
This has been hard on you and your son.
Exactly.
Murat Mayer in Washington says he and his son are fortunate they were able to get his record cleared up before college deadlines. His son has applied to study business finance in the fall, and this time it will really be him.
And how is he doing?
Very well. He's a straight A student, has been very successful, honor student, so he's doing well.
All right, coming up, we'll speak with one of the stars of a new sci-fi thriller that dishes out justice with the questionable help of AI. Well, you're watching Prime. Here's a look at the stories making headlines right now. A new video appears to show Minneapolis ICU nurse Alex Pretti in a struggle with federal agents 11 days before he was shot and killed. In the video, you can see the man shouting at agents who are blocking an intersection. The man who looks like Pretti is then seen kicking a federal vehicle before agents tackle him. We do not know what happened before this altercation. DHS is reviewing the video. This all comes as sources tell ABC News the two federal officers involved in Pretti's shooting are now on paid administrative leave. FBI agents executed a search warrant at the Fulton County Elections Office in Georgia today. According to a county spokesperson, the FBI is seeking records related to the 2020 elections. President Trump warned last week at Davos that prosecutors were on the way over allegations that the 2020 election was rigged. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office wants the Luigi Mangione state trial to start July 1st, 3 months before the federal case. Mangione has pleaded not guilty to state and federal charges stemming from the 2024 murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The DA's office says there are significant state interests in putting Mangione on trial sooner. Mangione's attorney says the July date is unrealistic. And today is the 40th anniversary of NASA's Challenger disaster. Families of the astronauts lost in the space shuttle accident gathering back at the launch site to mark the tragic day. All 7 on board were killed when Challenger broke apart following liftoff on January 28, 1986. Coming up, outrage in the football world, why one of the best NFL coaches of all time was left out of the Hall of Fame. Backlash tonight in the NFL world after arguably the greatest coach of all time was not elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Let's take a look by the numbers. Bill Belichick, the 8-time Super Bowl winning coach, was not elected after voting earlier this month. It was the first ballot and many expected him to make it without any issues. He fell short of the 40 out of 50 votes needed for induction. ESPN reports Belichick told an associate 6 Super Bowls isn't enough, referring to the championships he won while he was the head coach of the New England Patriots. As a coach, he went 333 and 178, and his career victories are only second to Don Shula. He also won 17 division titles, 9 conference championships, the most by any coach in the Super Bowl era. Sources tell ESPN the 2007 Spygate scandal may have played a role. A veteran Hall of Fame voter says that was the only explanation for the outcome. Tom Brady writing a note to the Hall of Fame committee saying, in part, I had a front row seat for 20 years watching the greatest coach of all time prepare, teach, and lead. I don't believe that any coach in the history of the game has done more to earn his place in the Hall of Fame than Bill Belichick. Belichick will need to wait until next year to possibly get the call to Canton. All right, coming up, the crazy rescue from an icy river caught on camera, and the university making tuition free for families earning less than $100,000. The heroic rescue after a car plunged into a river. Free tuition at Yale for some students. And music's biggest night is this weekend. The big star they just announced is performing. These stories and more in tonight's Rundown. A woman is thankful to be alive after her car slid off an icy bridge in Massachusetts and plunged into a river below. Maheen Abazari is an emergency department nurse and was on her way home from work Monday night when she drove down a narrower than usual street. Local officials say she launched off a snowbank, through a guardrail and down a 20-foot embankment into the Sudbury River. Incredibly enough, she was not hurt. Yale University becomes the latest institution to waive tuition and other costs for students of families who make under $100,000 a year. Harvard University, Princeton University, the University of Pennsylvania, and MIT have all made similar changes to help widen the socioeconomic diversity of its student population. Yale's new policy also promises to waive tuition, but not all costs for families making under $200,000 a year. Thousands online are remembering the founder of Beauty to the Streets, Shirley Raines. Her family sharing on social media she has passed away, saying Miss Shirley dedicated her life to serving others and made an immeasurable impact on homeless communities throughout Los Angeles and Nevada. She is widely known to her followers for her philanthropic work, giving out food and supplies to those in need. No word yet on the cause of her death. Shirley Raines was 58. Coco Gauff smashed her racket into the concrete floor once for every time she dropped to serve, and another one for good measure after her Australian Open quarterfinal loss to Alina Svitolina. The third-seeded Gauff, a two-time major winner, struggled with her serve and recorded 5 double faults in the first set. Gauff said she felt it was better to shatter a racket than to take out any frustrations on her support team. The Brookfield Zoo, Chicago, is offering the chance to name one of their hissing cockroaches after your ex this Valentine's Day. For $15, you can name one of the Madagascar hissing cockroaches after that unspecial someone in your life. The Name a Cockroach package includes a certificate of naming that can either be shared with the recipient or kept to yourself. The names will be posted on a cockroach naming board and will be revealed on Valentine's Day. And Justin Bieber is returning to the Grammy stage. The singer will perform at the annual Music Awards this Sunday, which is his first major performance since 2022. The two-time Grammy winner is up for 4 Grammy Awards this year, including Album of the Year for his latest record, Swag. Set in the future, the new sci-fi thriller Mercy follows a detective played by Chris Pratt, who has just 90 minutes to prove his innocence to an artificial intelligence judge played by Rebecca Ferguson, or risk execution. Alongside the two, Kaylee Reese plays a skeptical detective aiming to uncover the truth before it's too late. Let's take a look.
All right, Jack, come on. Let's walk it.
Hey, listen, Chris. You need to get something really clear here first. You know I'm down for this, but if it ends up looking bad for you, that's exactly how I'm going to say it looks, okay? You know we need every Mercy trial to send a message, and if that message today is that cops aren't above the law, I won't like it, but I'll sleep good tonight.
All right, that is Kaylee Reese. She joins us now. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I saw the film yesterday, and I found myself like holding my breath through multiple parts of this. What was it like to work with Chris Pratt, Rebecca Ferguson on your first major studio film here?
It was amazing. I mean, Chris Pratt and Rebecca, they're both such professionals, and they have such a long line of films and all the experience that they had in just telling this particular story. It was amazing even just to sit at the table read and watch Rebecca kind of bring some humanity to this AI judge and how her brain works around this character. And also Chris, this was a different role for him and what I'm used to seeing him. This was a very serious role. So we worked really close together on our backstories because we don't have a lot of screen time in the same room together. We just, communicating through phones, but it was a great experience.
I mean, in this film, artificial intelligence essentially is judge, jury, executioner. Did playing this role in this film change the way you view AI at all? Because AI is everywhere now.
Yeah, it's crazy because I read the script about 2 years ago, and we shot this almost a year and a half ago, and the progression of from where it started to now and talking about the movie when it comes out, it's took such a fast, fast change. And my thoughts about AI is just like anything else. It's a great tool, a tool. You can have a hammer to build, you can have a hammer to destroy. So my outlook at this is kind of, I'm more positively intrigued and curious.
So I want to talk about the way you grew up. You're from Rhode Island. We talked about Rhode Island a little bit earlier. You lived there. I worked there a little bit. You're also a member of Seekonk Wampanoag that we had a chance to talk about too. Your life before you were acting, a boxer. I read online that you're the first Indigenous woman fighter to become world champion. And one platform that you're trying to bring awareness to is missing and murdered Indigenous women. Why is that important to you?
It's so important to me. It's something, I mean, amongst so many other things. I'm a mixed Cape Verdean, indigenous Wampanoag Two-Spirit woman. You know, I check a lot of boxes, and coming from where I'm coming from, we don't see, you know, missing and murdered indigenous women wasn't something that was, you know, I grew up knowing. I just knew that we were targeted as being indigenous women. And when it started going mainstream, MMIW, I'm like, why aren't we hearing or seeing this more mainstream? And why aren't there answers? You know, I have a platform, so I chose to use my boxing platform just to bring awareness. You know, I don't consider myself an activist by any means, just kind of a mouthpiece, but there's no answers. There's lack of resources, and I just don't understand why we're not talking about this all the time. We talk about everything else. We talk about AI, we talk about the new Labubus out, but we don't talk about things that matter, and our people are being targeted. You know, I just want to do what I can to bring awareness as much as I can.
So what do you think can be done?
I think, you know, as far as, especially speaking of AI and technology, I mean, as far as having some kind of warning system or actually a real clear vision on what jurisdictions are. I mean, they have cases where, you know, they have jurisdiction battles where somebody's life is on the line, where we don't know where they don't take these cases or these people missing seriously. They just think it's another runaway. And by the time they realize what it is, it's too late.
So let's talk about indigenous people in media and in film representation. What do you think has to be done to bring more indigenous people to mainstream media?
I think coming from, you know, all the backgrounds I do come from, and we have so many talented people amongst so many communities, whether it's women, whether it's indigenous people, Cape Verdean people, it doesn't matter. I just feel like we should be telling the stories from the source, especially when we have these stories. History shows that indigenous stories weren't told by indigenous people. You know, they were told about the perspective of people, how they thought things were. I just think that we should continue on the trajectory that we are on, telling these indigenous stories, having these filmmakers, having these writers, even makeup artists, hair stylists, designers, just telling these authentic stories from these authentic perspectives, no matter what story we're telling.
Kayla Reese, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, Mercy is in theaters now, and that's our show for this hour. I'm Perry Russum. Thank you for streaming with us. Stay with ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories.